And now joining us in the studio for more perspective on Egypt as it enters a new era is Dr. Sulayman Nyang, Professor of African Studies at Howard University here in Washington. Professor Nyang, I can say there was nobody I could think of who I wanted to come here to comment about what is going on in Egypt. And I'm curious about your reaction when it came down to the resignation of Mr. Mubarak on Friday.
I think the resignation of President Hosni Mubarak was a revolutionary action in Egyptian history for two reasons. One, it is a divorce given to him by his people, but at the same time, it was a very embarrassing situation for him vis-a-vis his alliances abroad. So when we look at the departure of Hosni Mubarak, we see it as the culmination of a series of resistance to his rule since he took over power from the late President Anwar Sadat in 1981. But actually what happened in Egypt is a revisit to the seizure of power from the King Farouk in 1952 by Nasser. The Egyptian people have traveled a whole 60-year transition from military coup d'etat against a monarch, something which was revolutionary at the time, and of course many monarchies resisted that in other parts of the Arab world, and they're still resisting.
But now, you know, Dr. Nyang, just moving forward, of course, even when Mr. Mubarak came into office, he promised a lot of things, a lot of new leaders promised. He was going to tackle the issue of unemployment. He created housing for people. It was a good time when he first entered. But then you have a lot of leaders in Africa who kind of fit into this Mubarak profile, who have been there now for a long time, came in with the popularity of a lot of people, the support, but over the years dwindled. So I imagine there are a lot who are concerned about what is coming down for them. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I think the divorce administered to Mubarak by the Egyptian population could very well be given to some of the dictators in South of the Sahara, because they have been there too long. Take, for example, Zimbabwe. We have President Mugabe has been there since the 1980s,
exactly.
Almost the same time as Hosni Mubarak. And President Museveni in Uganda has been there as long as these other people. The same thing is true to the president of Cameroon and the president, the newly appointed head of the African Union out of Equatorial Guinea.
Right.
These people are suffering from long period in power, and people are getting tired. I think what Winston Churchill told dictators like Hitler and other dictators out of Europe, that they ride on hungry tigers, and they are getting hungrier. And dictators don't want to be dismounted. And I think we find ourselves in a very interesting kind of metaphor. These dictators have been ruling too long, and they are now ruling people who are tired of them, and they want them to get out, but they don't want to dismount. They know the tigers are hungry.
The tigers are hungry, and most of these movements are being driven by the young people, the youth, as we're seeing. But when you look at what happened in Tunisia and Egypt, 20-plus-year governments being brought down literally in weeks, and most of them, people interpreted these to be strong governments that were not easily crumbled. What do you say happened? So are they not as strong as they seem to appear?
Yeah, I think there was the double illusion about these leaders. There is the illusion of support from abroad, from the big countries. Then there is the illusion that they can continue to frustrate the interests of their people. They underestimated the power of the young people. If the young people are desperate, if you look at demographics, here you have the conspiracy of history and demographics. The conspiracy of history and demographics working against them. And that's the mistake of the dictators. They don't know that history is not on their side. And the young people are getting tired. They need jobs. And modernity is working with the young people, because modernity gives the young people the cell phone, the internet, and all these technological gadgets. Hosni Mubarak is a victim of his own underestimation of the internet, because he did not do to the Egyptian people what the Iranians did or the Chinese and other people have done. So in the end, he paid the bitter price of underestimating the young people and their gadgets.
So in 2 seconds, what's the lesson to take from this?
I see Hosni Mubarak's message is a bad message for all dictators. People are no longer going to accept this. And the other thing is, don't have the illusion that you can fool the people all the time, most of the time, and you can get your son to carry the legacy of oppression.
See why I had to have you here. Dr. Sulayman Nyang of Howard University joining us here on In Focus.